All rise. Hear ye, the Chief Justice and Justices of the Supreme Court of Michigan. All persons having business before this honorable court are admonished to draw nigh and give their attention, for the court is now sitting. God save the United States, the state of Michigan, and this honorable court.
Good afternoon and welcome. It is my honor to call to order this special session of the Michigan Supreme Court to unveil the portrait of Justice Kurtis Wilder. On the bench today are my colleagues, Brian Zara, David Viviano, Richard Bernstein, Megan Kavanaugh, Elizabeth Welch, and Kyra Harris Bolden. A special thank you to the Michigan Supreme Court Historical Society for their support of this event, as well as all of the other work the Society does to honor and preserve the history of this institution. In addition to my colleagues on the bench, I believe we have several retired justices here to join us in celebrating Justice Wilder. I'm gonna try to not miss anybody. I see Justice Markman, welcome. Justice Young next to him. Is Justice Corrigan here? There she is. Hi, Justice Corrigan. And Justice Taylor. Yes, didn't hear me. Welcome. I also want to acknowledge many former staff and clerks that have also joined us today. A very special welcome to our honored guests, including former Governor Rick Snyder and John Engler, and all of our speakers today. You can all read Justice Wilder's bio and the awards and honors bestowed upon him. And I'm sure we're going to hear today from those close to Kurt what he means to them, the legal profession, and the judicial branch. Before we hear from our distinguished speakers, I want to take a moment to welcome Justice Wilder and his family, particularly his family, because having spent time with Justice Wilder, I know that that is what is first and foremost most important to him, and I've loved hearing all of the stories about his children and all of their adventures. So welcome to all of you. During his years of distinguished service to the people of Michigan, Kurt has developed countless professional relationships and nurtured many personal connections along the way, as you can all see by looking around this courtroom. Now I am pleased to introduce one such connection who will serve as our Master of Ceremonies today, former U.S. Attorney Matthew Schneider. Matthew's distinguished legal career includes service in the White House Office of General Counsel under President George W. Bush, and more recently in the U.S. Attorney's Office as the top federal law enforcement official for the Eastern District of Michigan, which encompasses 34 counties and approximately 6.5 million people. In this capacity, Matthew oversaw prosecutions involving international terrorism, violent crime, public corruption, environmental crime, financial fraud, among many other criminal and civil matters. Although Matthew and I both count ourselves as Spartans for our undergraduate degrees, he decided to forsake the green and white for the maize and blue when it came to law school, an alma mater he shares with our honoree today. I'm pretty sure they're still high-fiving over the big game this past weekend, yes, along with their fellow alumni today. I will not say, thanks, Kurt. I will not say go blue, but I will welcome our friend and our MC today, Matthew Schneider. Matthew.
Madam Chief Justice, honorable justices, and friends, let me start by thanking the Chief Justice and her fellow justices for welcoming us into this beautiful courtroom today. And second, let us all give a round of applause to the family of Justice Wilder, because we are so thankful to you for supporting him through his nearly 3 decades of public service to the people of the state of Michigan. Now, the duties of a Masters of Ceremony are pretty simple. Keep the program moving and don't say anything that will hurt anybody's feelings or insult them. We should be able to accomplish both of those things, since Bob Young wasn't able to serve as the MC today. We'll get a rebuttal later. So as we begin our program, I'd like to make two observations about Kurt Wilder. Number one, I first met Kurt in my first year of law school. He was a circuit court judge. And with that power dynamic, some people in his position would not have given me the time of day. But the complete opposite was true. Kurt was, and still is, kind, caring, helpful, and generous with his time. There are few people so willing to serve as a mentor and a guide as he is. He is truly a model of how we should all treat younger people. Number two, Kurt is a strong man of faith in the Lord. And best of all, he's not afraid to show that. We've had some wonderful conversations about how, even in the most difficult times, God is with us every step of the way. And that, too, is a model of devotion for all of us. And with that tribute to Kurt's faith, it is wholly appropriate that we invite the Reverend Emily Campbell, Senior Minister of the First Presbyterian Church of Plymouth, to offer our invocation. Reverend Campbell?
Let me just say that it is a blessing to be here to represent Kurt's church family. And we have been blessed to have him as an elder and a choir member and a dear friend. And I will also say that Kurt's faith is not by accident. He had two amazing parents who taught him that from the very beginning. And it's been a blessing to them, and I know how proud they would be of you today. I invite you at this time to all please join me in prayer. Let us pray. Almighty God, you are always more willing to bestow your good gifts upon us than we are to seek them. You are more willing to give than we desire or deserve. Help us this day so to seek, that we may truly find, so to ask, that we may joyfully receive, so to knock, that the door of mercy may be opened to us. Today, we do ask that you would bless this ceremony. We thank you for the blessing of friends and colleagues working together for justice, for peace, for healing, to offer hope to a world in need. In humility and in grace, we thank you today for Kurt Wilder and his service to your people. Please bless him and his family and this gathering here today. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Our first speaker tonight is the 46th governor of the state of Michigan. It's significant that we also remember that he is the final Michigan governor to serve 3 terms in office. That long tenure gave Governor John Engler the ability to appoint judges and justices who showed faithful honor to the Constitution and appropriate deference to the laws passed by the people through their elected representatives. Governor Engler appointed Kurtis T. Wilder to the Washtenaw County Trial Court in 1992 and to the Michigan Court of Appeals in 1998. Ladies and gentlemen, Governor John Engler.
Thank you very much, Matthew Snyder. Honorable Chief Justice, members of this honorable court, Governor Snyder, and so many distinguished guests all here to celebrate the career of Kurtis Wilder. A remarkable career it has been, too. Kurt overcame adversity early on, having born in Ohio, and then ending up in Ann Arbor and being accepted there. So that alone showed great skill, and certainly it was among the attributes that were noted when his name was brought before me way back in 1992. Seems like a long time ago, but Kurt possessed the kind of both personality and legal acumen that I looked for when given the opportunity to make an appointment. He certainly was a person with a reputation of integrity and yet compassion. He was the kind of person that would come, and Matthew Snyder just referenced it, his fidelity to the Constitution, the rule of law, I think was understood. But when you see it in practice, as we saw, and the circuit court's a little bit different, but we saw the opportunity and the potential as Kurt served with distinction the citizens of Washtenaw County. And it was not then a difficult choice in 1998 to reach out to Kurt and say, would you accept a spot on the Michigan Court of Appeals? And Governor Snyder will talk about the 112th justice, which he becomes after this tenure. I would note, though, that in Kurt's collection of accolades is one important historical note. He's one of only 5 jurists in our state's history to actually served at all 3 levels, to be a circuit judge, an appellate judge, and then serve on our state's highest court. 27 years of service in the judiciary, a lengthy tenure, and one that was marked by a reputation that simply was enhanced over each of those years as he served. And his departure from the bench then proved an opportunity for Butzel Long to recapture this individual and bring him back into a life which today consists of a dramatic amount of public service yet. I was impressed, and it's in the lovely brochure that we have, chairing the board of Interlochen Center for the Arts, chairing the Michigan Chamber of Commerce, and perhaps maybe most challenging to be on the board of the Alumni Association of the university that has America's team, the University of Michigan, where Kurt at this point has not yet had to leave the board to enter into any representation of anybody at that said university, but hopefully that will not be necessary as they pursue their national championship. But in Kurt, we have somebody who has already won a national championship in the halls of justice in the service to the people of Michigan. And so it is an honor today to join with his many friends. I was going to mention some of them, but many of them are actually, most of them actually are speaking, so I thought I would forego that, but I am delighted. And we achieve a little bit of a first today because having had the privilege of doing some of these in the past, this is the first time I've ever had the opportunity to be with Governor Snyder. We have 2 governors here today, so that also clearly has said something about Kurt Wilder and his influence to bring both Governor Snyder and myself here. But I do join with everyone in congratulating him and having, while the portrait's not unveiled, having had the sneak preview in our brochure, it is a beautiful portrait and it captures the essence of Kurtis Wilder. And I think it is noteworthy that it will be here for generations in this beautiful building for school children and others to see and hopefully emulate his service to the people of our great state and to his fidelity to the rule of law. Thank you very much.
Justice Brian Zara is yet another example of Governor Engler's outstanding legacy. In 1994, Governor Engler appointed Brian K. Zara to the Wayne County Circuit Court. 4 years later, he elevated Judge Zara to the Court of Appeals. In fact, then Judge Zara, Judge Wilder, and Judge Jeffrey Collins were sworn in to the Court of Appeals at the same time, courtesy of Chief Justice Taylor. Finally, though, not to be outdone by all of this appointing business by our 46th governor, in 2011, Michigan's 48th governor, Rick Snyder, selected Justice Zara as his very first Supreme Court appointment. Please welcome Justice Zara.
Thank you, Matthew, and thank you all, and thank you, Kurt, for including me in your program. Kurt asked me to be very concise, and I'm going to do my best to honor his wishes. I don't have a lot of humor to inject to this, Kurt, because you are such a sincere and humble and wonderful person to work with. You were an exemplary jurist. Kurt possessed all the tools needed to excel as a judge. He's exceedingly smart and intellectually grounded in the law, yet he is humble in his presentation. I sat with Kurt on over 300 matters as a Court of Appeals judge, and we sat together in the Supreme Court for almost 2 years, where we considered hundreds more cases. I cannot recall Kurt ever opening the discussion of a case by declaring what his sense of the law was. Kurt is always patient, attentive, and receptive to the thinking of others before expressing his understanding of the law. This made Kurt particularly persuasive and influential as an appellate jurist. Colleagues did not prepare for combat when sitting with Kurt Wilder. Instead, they prepared to embark on a search for the law. Kurt possesses an incredibly even-keeled demeanor, and truth be told, I am envious of Kurt's mild-mannered disposition. He understands most of the world and life are outside of one's control, and there is no need to worry or try to control that which you cannot. This is no small matter, and it is particularly a difficult state of mind for a judge to achieve. Judges, by and large, issue orders that are generally followed. This creates a false sense of control. Kurt always understood his role and was at peace with the notion that he facilitates the orderly administration of justice. He does not control it. Kurt took his role as a public servant very seriously, and his service did not begin or end when he put on that robe. What I mean by this is that after Kurt executed his duties as a judge, he turned his focus to his community, and he continues his community service in the private sector today. Kurt gives of his time and talent in such marvelous organizations as the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, Interlochen Center for the Arts, Detroit Children's Hospital Foundation, and, as we heard, the Alumni Association for the University of Michigan Board. Kurt also has served as president of the Michigan Judges Association, chairman of the State Bar Judicial Conference, and a member of the boards of the National Kidney Foundation, the Rotary Club, and American Red Cross. Kurt always was and continues to be remarkable in his ability to perform his professional and personal duties in life while exceedingly well, all while finding time to give back to his community. And Kurt always has his priorities properly aligned. He has a deep devotion and love for his family. He is an exemplary father, now grandfather, and he was, to the very end, an outstanding son to his parents, Nathaniel and Dr. Sarah Wilder, who are no longer with us. I'll never forget that Kurt, in the midst of a hotly contested campaign in 2018, suspended his campaign when it was at its most busiest time to return for several days to his home state of Ohio to care for his parents who were ailing and to assist them to move out of their home that they had lived in and into an assisted care facility. Many, if not all of these attributes are attributable to Kurt's unyielding faith in God. As I noted at his investiture to this court, Kurt is a man of deep faith who lives with faith each and every day. Kurt always has time for others. He's willing to lend a hand, to listen, to provide a shoulder to lean on. Kurt never turned down a friend, and I mean never. Moreover, Kurt is not ashamed to pray for you or to suggest that one might find peace in heart and mind through prayer. In a day where religious liberty is under attack, it takes great courage and conviction to live one's faith. And Kurt certainly lives his faith, and he serves as a beacon of light to all around him to see how faith can ground you in peace, humility, and love for others. Kurt was also an excellent jurist because of his deep commitment to equal justice under law. with an emphasis on achieving justice under law. Kurt embraced the traditional understanding of the judicial role. Kurt was and is deeply committed to the notion that the judicial branch, like all government, is to be limited and constrained. Kurt was always dedicated to giving faithful meaning to the language of constitutions, statutes, and contracts that he reviewed. He was 100% focused and committed to judicial decision-making derived not from looking inside himself or his heart or his conscience or his personal sense of justice, but outside of himself. He was always looking for the law and had an unyielding commitment to the rule of law. I once heard it said that there are two types of judges in this world, nouns and verbs. The nouns are the subject of the judicial proceedings over which they preside. The judge who is a noun is the focal point of the proceedings. The nouns proudly display their awards and accolades given to them for groundbreaking decisions that embarked in new areas of the law. The verbs, on the other hand, are judges who merely facilitate the action or function of judging. They diligently search for the law and blindly apply it to the facts. The verbs do not solicit or desire to be honored or proclaimed for the work that they do. Judge and Justice Kurt Wilder was never a noun. He was always a verb. For Kurt Wilder, it was not about being a judge. It was about serving the public by performing the function of judging, about properly discerning what the law is and applying the law equally to those before him. I can tell you, Judge Justice Kurt Wilder, he's not comfortable being the focal point of any proceeding. In fact, I am 100% certain he is uncomfortable here tonight as I speak. But he is a judge's judges. He makes those around him aspire to be better jurists, lawyers, and human beings. Without hesitation, I can say with conviction that the state of Michigan is a better place because Kurtis Wilder served the people as a judicial officer in the Circuit Court, the Court of Appeals, and the Michigan Supreme Court. Kurt, thank you for being my friend and colleague and for inspiring me and all those with whom you work to be the best jurist we can be. I see in the program it was given to me to introduce our next speaker, Judge Murray. I guess with good cause that they did not tell me in advance that I'd be doing this because I could probably inject a little humor there. But Judge Murray is a longtime Court of Appeals judge, I'm guessing in the range of 25 years now. He served as the chief judge of the court. He's an outstanding jurist, and he is an incredible friend of both mine and Kurt. Judge, the podium is yours.
Can I use that podium over there? I don't want to face, you know. I can reverse me next.
Well, you can go there or you can do here, whichever you prefer.
I prefer here. Thank you. I just, you know, the thoughts in my head will be too much. Anyway, good afternoon. I am very honored to briefly speak about Justice Wilder's time on the Court of Appeals. As Governor Engler and Justice Zara highlighted, Justice Wilder is an exceptional individual who has made many great contributions to Michigan law. And in that regard, and despite knowing that this is a ceremony celebrating his tenure as a Supreme Court justice, I would argue that Kurt Wilder's impact on Michigan law while on the Court of Appeals was as profound as it was on any other court. And this holds true even though Kurt authored many important decisions while on the Supreme Court. First, a few historical facts about Kurt's tenure on the Court of Appeals. The first panel Judge Wilder sat on was in March of 1999 with Judges Barbara McKenzie and Roman Gribbs. And his first authored opinion was In Re Martin, of course, a 1999 decision. His last panel was in May of 2017 with Judges Colleen O'Brien and Mark Boomstra. And his last Court of Appeals opinion that he authored was issued in January 2017, a case you'll probably remember, Allard versus Allard. And for anyone who practices domestic relations law, they know that case is cited all the time to this day. During the almost 2 decades that Kurt served on the Court of Appeals, He was a signatory on, are you ready for this? 5,837 opinions, 620 of which were published. And of those published opinions, Judge Wilder was a designated author of 175, while the overall number of published opinions he wrote was closer to 300 when including per curiams. And these figures don't even include all the work done on the monthly motion docket, which can also have a meaningful impact on the cases. Even though these stats are interesting and hopefully provide Kurt with a sense of pride and accomplishment with all that you did at the Court of Appeals, I think if a poll was taken amongst his former colleagues, they wouldn't rank his opinions as the number one reason why they think so highly of him. Those opinions would rank high, of course, but my guess is that the number one reason they hold him in such high regard and considered him such a wonderful colleague was because of the person he is. As everyone here knows, Kurt Wilder is a man of incredible intellect and integrity, principled in everything that he does, and humble despite his many accomplishments. He treated all of his colleagues with respect, which showed both through his opinions and the way he dealt personally with everybody. Judge Wilder's opinions were always thorough and scholarly and never contained snide remarks towards a colleague. Instead, he addressed an opinion's failings on the merits alone. And rather than send an impersonal email, Kurt would often pick up the phone or just walk down the hallway to discuss a case or issue or just to see how life was treating you. Practically speaking, Judge Wilder would be the first to cover a motion docket assignment so someone could go on vacation, and at the appropriate time, he would offer his insight and advice on procedure or merits on a case. And having that personal interaction was invaluable and went a long, long way to preserving the strong collegiality we have at the Court of Appeals. Just as importantly, and some may argue more importantly, Judge Wilder frequently took the time to speak with our staff, asking how they were doing both professionally and personally. A family-type culture predominated at the court, and Kurt was a huge reason for that. In part, that's because when Kurt was engaged in conversation, you could tell he was actually listening to the person and cared about what they were saying. In other words, he was and is a remarkable colleague in person. But you know what? You don't have to take my word for it. Instead, let's take a short walk down memory lane and hear what some of your former Court of Appeals colleagues had to say about their service with you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to join so many others in recognition of Justice Wilder by way of this portrait unveiling today. I want to emphasize a special quality that Justice Wilder brought to the court and brings to his everyday life, and that's his kindness. He was a fine legal scholar and a hard worker, but he's also just a kind man in his relationships with his colleagues, in his relationships with his fellow workers, and with those who came in contact with him professionally. So it's a great day and a well-deserved one. Congratulations to you, Mr. Justice, and Kurt, God bless in the years ahead.
Hi, Justice Wilder. It's Amy and Lucy. We can't be there today. Obviously, Lucy's not invited because she's a dog, but we know she's your favorite. And I can't be there today either because I'm out of town. But I wanted to say congratulations on your portrait. And Lucy says congratulations too. We're really proud of you and so glad that we know you and call you friends. So we both call you friends.
Hey, Kurt. Bill Murphy weighing in just to congratulate you on this special day where your portrait is being presented. Your portrait, in my judgment, reflects a long career of judicial service to the people of the state of Michigan. Circuit Court Judge, Court of Appeals Judge, Supreme Court Justice. Kurt, I always enjoyed hearing cases with you. You were always prepared, knowledgeable, insightful. It was a pleasure serving with you on the Court of Appeals. I consider you not only a wonderful colleague, but a good friend. Congratulations, Kurt.
This is Bill Schutte, and I'm delighted to say a few words about my dear friend, Kurt Wilder. Kurt Wilder is a great guy. He's kind and he's friendly. And Kurt is smart and consistent, which, in my opinion, are two essential requirements for anybody engaged in public service. And Kurt Wilder served with distinction on the Michigan Court of Appeals and the Michigan Supreme Court. And Kurt Wilder made a difference for our Great Lakes state, and he still does. And a great thing about Kurt is that, he doesn't just consume oxygen, he makes Michigan better. You want to be on Team Wilder, and you want him to be on your team. Kurt is a top shelf kind of guy. Kurt, thank you for your service. Honored to be part of this today. Enjoy it.
All of our feelings are unanimous. Every judge on the court who served with you from the very beginning of your tenure at the court to the very end consider you to be an extraordinary colleague and, most importantly, a true friend. So on behalf of everyone at the Court of Appeals, congratulations on this well-deserved honor.
Thank you, Judge Murray, for that very heartfelt video tribute.
The technology in the Court of Appeals is better than it is in the...
No question.
So, judges can be impressive, but I'm certain that all of us will agree our next speaker's background is thoroughly amazing. Brigadier General Catherine E. White simultaneously holds 3 careers: full professor of law at Wayne State Law School, special assistant to the Chief of the United States National Guard Bureau, and vice chair of the Board of Regents at the University of Michigan. General White holds advanced degrees in electrical engineering, computer science, law, patent law, and strategic military studies. And she earned those degrees at Princeton, the University of Washington, George Washington University, and the U.S. Army War College. She has been a Fulbright Senior Scholar, a White House Fellow, a U.S. Court of Appeals clerk, and she's currently registered as a patent attorney. Time prevents me from describing the many other details of her impressive biography. Please welcome General White.
Can I tell them? Sure. So Justice Kavanaugh was one of my students, so I feel like I'm a really good professor. So proud of you, so proud of you. This is such a big day, and I am deeply honored to speak here at Justice Wilder's portrait unveiling ceremony. And I'm good friends with Justice Wilder, but I always called him Judge or Justice Wilder, so I'm going to continue to do so.
Thank you, General.
It's such a great moment for us to express appreciation for you, not only as a jurist, but as a person. And I first met Justice Wilder in 2008 when I joined the Interlochen Center for the Arts Board. And Justice Wilder was helping us then, before you were chair, just leading the board. Such a wonderful colleague to work with. I admire your clarity of thought, your calm manner, and I've learned so very much from you. I appreciate your talent in working well with others to solve very complex problems, and you inspire us to rise to a level higher than we would without you. You always do your homework. We all know that, don't we? Justice Wilder always does his homework, whether you're a jurist or a lawyer or a board member. And as a jurist, I've always appreciated the respect you have shown to the people of the state of Michigan. You've drawn on your experience as a trial judge, and as we talked about, not everyone who's been on appellate courts has served so ably as a trial judge. And it has informed your approach to writing judicial opinions. And you've always believed that one should not have to be a lawyer to decipher what the law is. And you have made sure of that in your opinions. As such, you strive to instruct workable rules, to make it easier to navigate a path towards developing comprehensive and consistent jurisprudence that can be clearly followed. Your perspective and your acumen are deeply valued and appreciated, and I feel so honored to have been able to spend time learning from you. Congratulations.
Most people know Richard E. Rassel as the president and CEO emeritus of one of Michigan's finest law firms, Butzel. But what you may not know is that he is now celebrating his 54th year of practicing law at Butzel. In his over 5 decades with the firm, Dick Rassel has been awarded just about every prestigious honor you can imagine. From his start in the United States Navy as a judge advocate, to his service on countless boards and nonprofits, to his tireless work on thousands of complex business litigation matters, Dick Rassel has been a legal powerhouse throughout his entire career. And in the middle of all that, he made time to be a mentor and a guiding light to a young Kurt Wilder. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dick Rassel.
That was a bit humbling. Good afternoon. May it please the court. It is an honor and a privilege to be included in the presentation today for my good friend, Judge Kurtis Wilder, to honor his unique lifetime of service, not only to the judiciary, to the practice of law, but also to the myriad of organizations that he has been involved in and continues to be involved in. I will sound a bit like a broken record now because everybody who has spoken has captured the same elements that I'm about to recite. I first met Judge Wilder in 1969 when we were fortunate enough to recruit him to Butzel. Shortly thereafter, I came to know his remarkable parents who had blazed and continued to blaze many, many trails in his hometown of Cleveland. Kurt's parents were very proud of them, and they shaped him to be the all-around good man and good leader that we all would come to know. A shaping that he has passed on to his daughter Alicia and to his son Cliff. At Butzel, we were quickly, Kurt became the kind of go-to young lawyer for all of us who were involved in the litigation side of the business, the dirty side of the business, not that orderly corporate stuff. And amazingly, despite the efforts of all of us in litigation, because we were pulling him in many directions every day of the week, we managed never to quite dismember him. And believe me, he was wanted and pulled in many, many directions. Alas, 3 years later, Governor Engler saw in Kurt what we at Butzel saw in Kurt and appointed him to the higher calling, the judiciary, as a judge of the Washtenaw County Circuit Court. Within months, the voters in Washtenaw County, and this was a leap of faith because he did have to be elected, the voters of Washtenaw County also saw what we saw and elected him to be the first black circuit judge in Washtenaw County. His fellow judges later named him chief judge. Kurt's ever-advancing career in the Michigan judiciary has already been covered by others, and it's in the notes. But I can only note that there is something that Governor Engler also noted. In this highly politicized world, few who started life with the disability of having been born in Ohio have earned the acceptance and recognition of being one of the leading judges in the state of Michigan. As a practicing lawyer and friend, 2 things have always stood out to me about Kurt's decades of judicial service. First, and this has been noted by everybody, his personal views never, ever governed how he was going to rule on a matter. And second, he was never affected by that unique judicial disease, black robotitis. Kurt's service to others has not been limited to the law, the judiciary, and fatherhood. His service has impacted a broad swath of organizations, and we have all heard them all today, but the Children's Hospital of Detroit, the Detroit Symphony, Interlochen Center for the Arts, the Michigan Chamber of Commerce, the NAACP, the Black Judges Association, and lastly, and notably, his church, the First Presbyterian Church of Plymouth, where he is not only a member of the choir, but I know also a frequent homilist. The list could go on, but in short, he has done more for his community and for our state than almost anyone I can name. He exceeded the expectations of those who saw promise in him years ago. He made his parents, his family, and all of us assembled here today proud. When in 2019, Kurt returned to Butzel, we were thrilled, those of us who had known him in the past. But many new faces had arrived in the firm in the ensuing 26 years that he had been pursuing his higher calling. But all at Butzel would soon come to know the unassuming, the welcoming, the always helpful leader, Kurt Wilder, who would listen, then answer questions and suggest possible avenues of thought to anybody. I am fortunate to have been part of Kurt's friendship circle for nearly 35 years. I remain in awe of my gentleman friend. Congratulations, Kurt. The portrait is great, and it captures the many-faceted man that you are to all of us.
People often wonder where the real power comes from in the judges' chambers. For Judge and then Justice Wilder, for over 25 years, the answer to that question was pretty simple. The power was Connie Fuller. Connie joined Judge Wilder at the Washington County Trial Court in early 1993 as his judicial administrative assistant. Now, Kurt set the tone for Connie's level of authority in his chambers right from the start. The day Connie started, Kurt promptly left the state for 3 weeks to attend judicial training school, leaving behind Connie to figure it all out. She did, and to this day, she is still at least 3 weeks ahead of Kurt in all that he does. Please give a warm welcome to Connie Fuller.
Thank you, Matthew. Congratulations, Justice Wilder, on this momentous occasion in the history of the Michigan Supreme Court. As Matthew said, and others, everybody, I worked with Kurt for over 25 years through 3 branches of Michigan courts over his judicial career: Washington Circuit Court, Michigan Court of Appeals, and Michigan Supreme Court. Over the course of the last 30 years, I think I've gotten to know him pretty well. How did I last so long, you might ask? Well, besides working well together, I had an amazing job security, in that I was the only one who could read his handwriting. It's still true. I've seen his generosity in giving his time to serving on nonprofit boards, as everybody has mentioned. Kidney Foundation, American Red Cross was a big one for me, and Interlochen Center for the Arts, and many, 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 many more. His generosity with his time also extended to his staff. Over the dozens of law clerks and law students that served in chambers, several of whom are here today, one from Nevada, he took and continues to take a genuine interest in their careers and help many pursue their careers in the law. The world gets to see a generous, kind-hearted Kurt. I got to see that on a more personal level. In one instance, this was a long time ago, he went above and beyond in my time of grief. When my father died suddenly, my brother, who was in the United States Air Force stationed in Europe, at that time, I didn't know that the Red Cross provided emergency assistance for a service member in this situation. Kurt Wilder told me of this and took charge of contacting the Red Cross and facilitating this for my family. The Red Cross aided in securing verification of death to the Air Force and expedited the required leave for my brother to come back to Michigan. I will never forget him for taking this on for me. But I can honestly say to every one of you that he would do it for you. In all my years working for and with Kurt, I learned many valuable lessons. One was his strict 24-hour rule. If anything or anyone ever bothered him, he would always wait 24 hours before responding. Time to reflect on the situation before taking action. I admit I'm not often as good at following that rule as he is. Not very often at all. But this all points to the character of the man I called boss for over 25 years and continue to call my friend. It's an honor to be here today for the dedication of Justice Wilder's official Supreme Court ceremony. Thank you.
Well, there's perhaps no better way to complete the bookend of Justice Wilder's judicial career than to hear from the person who appointed him to this very bench, Michigan Governor Rick Snyder. Now, when he wasn't busy eliminating the state's budget deficit, or turning around our state's economy, or rescuing the city of Detroit from fiscal disaster, he was appointing some exceptional judges. If my math is correct, Governor Snyder appointed 91 trial court judges, 9 Court of Appeals judges, and 5 justices to this bench. Governor, we are very thankful that on May 9, 2017, you chose Justice Wilder. Please welcome Governor Snyder.
May it please the court, good afternoon. It's great to be with you. It's an honor, Kurt, to have an opportunity to celebrate this occasion in your service to the state. I'm going to start with some dangerous territory, though, if it's okay. And the reason I say it's dangerous territory is I'm the last speaker of a long list, and you're all waiting to get out of here and see the portrait. The second one is I was going to make a couple comments starting with the University of Michigan. Kurt and I were contemporaries. We actually both went to undergrad there. We were in law school at the same time. You were a first year, I would have been a third year. We actually didn't know each other, but it proves the principle that you always heard about the law school stories. The very top students were the ones that became judges. The next tier became great private practitioners making lots of money. The tier after that were the people that became business people. The fourth tier, which I'll now describe, are the people that became governors. With one exception, Governor Engler in his days. So I appreciate, but from University of Michigan, so there are that difference between Wolverines and Spartans. And what I learned in Lansing is we're dramatically outnumbered by Spartans typically. So one thing I will say that we have proven, and you're the great example of it, is many people recognize the great humility of Wolverines, and you're a great personification of that. Now, we didn't really know each other, but before I appointed Kurt, we became friends. We were on a board together. Many people don't know that. So I'm not going to talk about his great legal background. We became personal friends. We were on a group called Sphinx together, an organization to encourage African American and Hispanic classical musicians. And so we had an opportunity to build an organization with some wonderful people. that did wonderful things to help people in need and to give them opportunities they otherwise wouldn't have had. And it wasn't just about getting to be members of this organization. It was about providing musical instruments, getting people access to classical music. Many of the young people didn't even know what a symphony was. Now, I'm not the great musician. Just like I was governor in that law school class, Kurt understood classical music and passionate for it. And close family ties, looking at people that were wonderful musicians, that were part of his life. And so we became friends. It was interesting. Then I had the good fortune to be elected governor, a true honor. Prior to that, I do want to give Governor Engler credit. He actually appointed me to a couple things, so that's not on his high list of great appointments. He did much other better ones. But I had the opportunity to do appointments, and one thing I didn't recognize, not being a career person in government service, is the importance of these appointments. They truly can make a profound difference in our state. And I have great pride in looking at this bench and people in this audience that I had the opportunity to appoint, and how proud I am of the wonderful service and what it means to our state. But one thing I'll tell you that was really important is we were personal friends, and I want to tell you that part, but that's not why you should appoint someone. That's one of the last reasons you should appoint someone. What I did learn, though, in addition by our friendship, is what this man is really made of. And that's something that meant something to me in terms of appointing him. If you look at the world today, one of the great challenges we have is we've lost our way in many respects. Many people have. We have a person here that believes in facts. We have a person here that has a strong moral compass. And you've heard about it in many respects from the organizations he belongs to, how he participates, how he practices, many aspects of his life. That's what really matters. And I wanted to appoint him because I knew he would bring that to this prestigious body. And that's something that we need more of in this world. And Kurt, thank you for your service doing that, making a wonderful difference in people's lives through all those times at various levels of the courts. But most importantly, I'm proud of my opportunity to share with you the opportunity to be on the Michigan Supreme Court. Now, let me close on a little bit lighter note, because I think it is appropriate, given that this is a neat occasion to have fun at, too. I'm living vicariously here today a little bit to come to Kurt's portrait unveiling. Those of you may not know, my portrait's actually up in the Capitol, but I never had an unveiling. It was during COVID. I got skipped. I said, just put it up, would you please? It's done. So they just stuck it up on the wall. The other thing, to show you how important this event is to me, is if you've seen my portrait, you'll notice something really unique today that I don't do lightly. It's one of the most serious decisions I make in my life, that I made because this is to celebrate Kurt. I would do this. Does anyone recognize what that great sacrifice is that I've made here that I otherwise won't do? The tie. Now, I just want to emphasize to you, it is not a clip-on. Also, the part I would ask you to recognize is Sue did not pick it out, nor did she tie it. I did this all by myself. And so it's something special to have the opportunity to wear a tie. If there's someone that deserves me putting on a tie, it's Kurt Wilder. Congratulations, and thank you so much for your service.
Finally, to the point we've all been waiting for. It's been said that a legacy portrait painted by nationally renowned artist Robert Maniscalco expresses love in a way that few other things can possibly do. Mr. Maniscalco has traveled all over the world to create his portraits in oil, in pastel, and in charcoal. And his award-winning work can be found in over 1,200 private and public galleries. Perhaps the best way to explain his works of art comes from the testimonies of other people painted by him. And as one subject said in a portrait, and I quote, His portraiture is some of the most animated, alive creations I have ever seen. When I look into the eyes of his people, I feel that I can read them and their lives as if they were standing in front of me in the flesh. And I'm certain we will agree. Please help me welcome Robert Maniscalco.
Wow, I didn't know that quote. I'm going to have to find that and stick it on my website. Honorable Justices of the Court and distinguished guests, and Kurt, I am joined today by my wife, Kate, and my sister, Betsy, and we're all here to celebrate the life and achievements of Kurt Wilder. But it's a tremendous honor for me and a solemn and humbling occasion when my work as an artist is successful, and that is to say, when it connects us intimately to the subject. Now, how do you capture the charisma and charm of a man like Kurt Wilder with a colorful stroke of paint in the brow? How do you get the eyes that have seen so deeply into the human condition as Kurt Wilder's have to follow you around the room? How do you tell all the success stories, the stinging setbacks, each turned on their heels by more stunning achievements that have distinguished Kurt Wilder's distinctly nonlinear career in the simple gesture of a pose? How does an artist, armed only with animal hair glued to sticks and some colored mud, acknowledge the profound artistry that is justice itself? In my 44 years as a professional artist, I have had the privilege of observing and translating the unique stories etched into the faces of many distinguished individuals. Justice Wilder's countenance is a canvas marked not just by time, but by the profound impact he has had on the tapestry of justice in this great state. I got that from Chat GPT. No, I'm just kidding. Richard Avedon, the famous photographer, famously said that all photographers are accurate, all photographs are accurate, but none of them true. You see, you can call me naive and a wee bit impartial, but I believe the truth can only be captured in the painted portrait. When I encounter my subjects, I try to get a sense of how they move through space, their rhythm and energy, to learn what drives them. In short, to become them so I can paint myself. I made that one up. Anyway, I guess that means I have about 10 self-portraits here in the Michigan Supreme Court, and I believe it's about 10. And I'm really very proud of that accomplishment and humbled that I am trusted each time to somehow coax the intricate stories and complexities of such great men and women out of the colors of on my palette. I hope my portrait tells the story of your legacy, Kurt. I really do, in a way that volumes listing all your many accomplishments never will be able to. That was a preposition I just ended in. Anyway, in time, your portrait will be more real and be more you than you. A 6-year-old girl once told me, "Your artwork is more real than real," which I consider the greatest compliment I ever received. I believe a portrait must be a deep dive into the psyche of the subject. A portrait is how a person is the way they are. For years, my stated goal had been to create figures and subjects so real they could step out of the canvas, like that nice person said about my work. Now I see myself creating a world that invites the viewer to inhabit it. I'm only ever asking myself one question when I paint a portrait. How can I make this individual appear at least as kind and lovable as I found them? So I hope that I have. I believe it is the artists who are the conscience of society, lighting the way for politicians and public servants. So since I have so many of you all here together in one room, let me implore you to pay attention to what we artists are doing and saying. We live among you to speak light into the world, but you must be willing to see it. And I think everyone in this room is. Thank God. Even George Bush has hopped onto the art bandwagon. I don't know how many of you know this, but since his retirement from public service, he has devoted himself to painting portraits. And I think with a little more practice, he could really make a name for himself. But I digress just a little. John Singer Sargent famously didn't like to get to know his subjects too well, preferring to trust his first impression. My first impression of Kurt was of a warm, affable, and kind man, a man who doesn't wait around for something to happen, who makes things happen. Kurt is equally as interested in the stories and aspirations of janitors as he is of governors. I just hope that my portrait has captured a glimmer of his charisma, humility, and deep interest and genuine investment he has made in the successes of others. I'm personally grateful for his support of Sphinx, the Detroit Symphony, but mostly for me, the Interlochen Center for the Arts. I was a camper there back in the ancient times we call the 70s. Insert laugh here. Sorry. Okay. A true arts advocate. I admire Kurt's laser focus on building others up, and that's why I could not be more proud to present my portrait of the Honorable Justice Kurtis Wilder. May it please the court. And if I have some assistants over here who are going to help me do this. Here we go.
She's like,
All right, I guess it falls to the next job. Justice Kurtis Wilder.
Justice Wilder, would you care to respond?
Yes, I will.
Well, may it please the court, Chief Justice Clement, and justices. I want to thank the members of the Michigan Supreme Court Historical Society for sponsoring this event and for their ongoing efforts to preserve the history of this court. Special thanks to Lynn Seeks, wherever she might be, Executive Director of the Historical Society, for her tireless efforts in organizing this event. Thanks also to Connie Fuller, Tamara York-Cook, Teresa Colleen, Rick Rassel, Charlene Turner, and Kristen Webb for their assistance in planning for the portrait, as well as to the many contributors who made this portrait and the reception to follow possible, and to the many members of the bench, the bar, and friends who are here today to celebrate this special occasion. I want to thank you, Chief Justice Clement and justices, for taking the time to be here. I know as well as anyone that on a Wednesday, that's a busy day for you. And so you honor me by being present for this portrait dedication. Governor Snyder, I want to thank you for your remarks today and for the confidence you placed in me by appointing me to this court and capping off my rewarding career as a jurist in this state. I'm sure that among other qualities you and your legal counsel at the time, Chief Justice Clement and Judge Jim Redford, considered when you decided to appoint me, you undoubtedly must have thought that you were making a long-term appointment because I'd never lost an election. I thought the same thing too. But in the immortal words of Hyman Roth, spoken to Michael Corleone, this is the business we've chosen. Where elections are concerned, someone wins and someone loses. If I had to lose an election, at least it was to someone whose family has had an honorable and distinguished record of service in the judiciary of this state, including on this court, and who herself was a distinguished advocate before this court. Governor Engler, I want to thank you for your remarks today as well, and for taking a chance in 1992 on a 32-year-old lawyer who some thought was too young to be a judge, and putting me on a pathway of tremendous opportunities for service on the bench and throughout the state of Michigan. You believed in me from the first time we met in 1987, and I hope I've always lived up to that belief. Justice Zara Bryant, I greatly appreciate your remarks as well as the friendship that we've developed working together and being friends for nearly 14 years at both the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court. Judge Murray, I also appreciate the friendship that we've developed having served together on the Court of Appeals for nearly 15 years. Really can't wait to see the video. But we got on the bench not to be technology experts, right? Thanks as well to the current and former Michigan Court of Appeals judges, many of whom I served with, who are here today to celebrate with me, including now Federal Circuit Judge Rick Griffin. General White, it's been a true honor to be your friend for many years, including on the board of Interlochen. I will forever be grateful for the memories of my parents and yours, enjoying each other's company while rooting for Michigan football. And by the way, it's great to be a Michigan Wolverine, especially after Michigan defeated Ohio State. I'm so happy that your parents, Bob and Sandy White, are here today to witness this unveiling. Dick, your friendship and mentorship from 1989 forward has been extremely treasured. You are a lawyer's lawyer and a true public servant. Thank you for your thoughtful and kind words today and for always being someone I could count on. Will Butzel CEO Paul Morsino and all my Butzel colleagues who are here today please stand to be recognized? Thank you. Now, while we did not work together on this court, I did have the privilege of serving on the Michigan Court of Appeals and working with and learning from former Chief Justice Maura Corrigan at Butzel. So Maura, would you please stand and be recognized? Connie, more than an assistant, you've been one of my most trusted and valued friends since 1993. Where's Connie? Oh, there she is. We've shared the joy of the good times and supported each other in the bad times. And although we don't work together on a daily basis anymore, I continue to treasure the bond that we have. Thank you for speaking on behalf of all the clerks and staff that you and I have worked with over 26 and a half years. At this time, I'd like to ask all the clerks and interns that I worked with over the years to please stand to be recognized. Thank you. All of my clerks have had distinguished careers, and I'm proud to have worked with all of them. Rob Maniscalco, I want to thank you for capturing the essence of who I am and tried to be as a jurist and a human being during my years on the bench. I can say for the record that in my opinion, you've painted a fair representation of what I look like and who I am. But I'm no art critic, so I'm going to leave it to the experts to give the final verdict. Matthew, you are a great general counsel to this court. You are a great U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan. But more importantly, you've been a great friend for so many years. As we've discussed faith, family, politics, and public service, it was a true honor for me that you agreed to serve as the Master of Ceremonies for today's proceedings, and indeed you performed masterfully. Reverend Campbell, Reverend Ashley, I'm truly blessed to be guided in faith by your strong commitment to God, the Word, and the saving grace of Jesus Christ. Thank you for your leadership, your friendship, and your participation here today. Lastly, I want to thank my family. Thanks to my daughter, Alicia Wilder-Mouse, and her husband, Matt, my son, Cliff, my granddaughter, Liana, and I know my nephew, Roosevelt Somerville, and his fiancee, Christina Bell, were trying to get here. I'm not sure. There they are in the back. Thank you all for being here today. Your love and support sustains me, and it means the world to me that you would be here to share this day with me. I want to acknowledge and express my love for my deceased older brother, Roosevelt Somerville, and his family, my brother Herbert and his family in Florida, my brother Carlton and his family in Australia, and all the other Wilder family who may be watching the live stream. I also want to acknowledge, remember, and thank my parents, Nathaniel and Dr. Sarah Wilder, who died 28 days apart in 2020 and 2021. Their story is truly representative of the American dream. They grew up in Jim Crow South, but they were determined to receive an education and not be defined by their challenging circumstances. They understood that through faith, hard work, and a bit of luck and unsolicited help of others, they could achieve things that were not possible for the previous generation. They worked to help others, always believing that when you give, you get. I've tried to live as an expression of their example, giving freely to others of whatever gifts or talents I might have, with the belief that when I am in need of assistance, God will provide in the form of others who will themselves pay it forward. As I said at my investiture, that I could become the 5th African American justice of the Michigan Supreme Court was a reflection and result of their faith and hard work, and it is part of their well-earned legacy. I was initially sworn in as a judge on April 2 of 1992. The Washtenaw County Circuit Court Administrator, Jim Enlows, had asked me to get sworn in the day before because the Circuit Court had been without its 5th judge for more than 4 months, and there was a significant backlog of cases. I was ready to get started, but I told Jim without any hesitation there was no way I was getting sworn in on April Fool's Day. In my nearly 27 years on the bench, I did my best not to be a fool, but instead to honor the pledge that I made when I first took the oath of judicial office, to provide equal justice under the law to every party and in every case I decided. Fidelity to the rule of law was not just a slogan to me. I understood from my parents' life experience just how important equal application of the law was, not only to the parties in each case, but also to every citizen of our local, state, and national communities. Without faith that equal justice under the law would prevail in each case, there can be no faith in the vitality of our republic. The perception of unfairness to some becomes the reality of unfairness. For this reason, I made every effort in every opinion to clearly explain as best I could why I reached the conclusion I reached. My motives, then as a jurist and now as an advocate, were and remain pure: to uphold the rule of law, respect the separation of powers between the branches of government, and always seek justice under the law. It was a great privilege to serve as a judge and justice of this state, just as it continues to be a privilege to practice law in this state. In fact, the lawyer's oath, which so many new lawyers have recently sworn, and so many judges recently administered reminds us of that privilege. As proud as I was to serve on this court, I am now proud to be an advocate in front of this court. Thank you again to this court and the Historical Society for this incredible opportunity to become a part of this court's history. And thanks again to all of you for being here to witness it with me.
Reverend Ashley, will you please come forward and offer the benediction?
Good afternoon, friends. I apologize in advance for my raspy voice. I am getting over a cold, but I'm so honored and glad to be here today, as I know many of you are. It is truly a joy that today we have the honor and the privilege to gather together and celebrate the accomplishments and the service of the Honorable Kurt Wilder. As Reverend Campbell mentioned at the beginning, Kurt is a dear friend of our congregation and of both of us, whose faith is a joy to have conversation with, to witness, and to call you a brother in Christ. And I am glad we can be here today. Friends, I would invite you now, as we have heard so many beautiful words, to join me in hearing this benediction. I hope you receive it with joy. As we leave here today, let us remember that we serve a God of justice and of peace, a God who leads us in paths of righteousness, and a God who calls us to serve others with wisdom, compassion, mercy, and grace. And friends, as you go, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. And may the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and forever bring you peace. Amen.
Well, congratulations, Kurt. Or, I'm sorry, Matthew, you done?
After you.
Oh, thank you. I knew where you were headed. I had a cheat sheet. Congratulations, Kurt. Thank you all for attending this special occasion and helping us honor Justice Wilder. We hope you can join us in continuing Kurt's celebration at a reception downstairs in the first floor conference center. And this special session of the Michigan Supreme Court is adjourned.